York's #2 sports show. The Yankees win an eventful series against the Chicago White Sox. They win 2 of 3, and Game 1 was an embarrassing loss. No way around it. This is potentially one of the worst teams of all time, the Chicago White Sox. We'll see how it turns out as far as their final record. They may end up with maybe the worst record in Major League Baseball history, and the Yankees lost 12-2 in Game 1. However, they do win the series 2 of 3, which is nothing to applaud, but there were some really, really amazing individual performances, including Juan Soto hitting 3 homers in Game 2, not to mention he homered in his first at-bat of Game 4. And Aaron Judge hits his 300th home run. He did so on a 3-run homer in the rubber game to kind of put the icing on the cake. And he is the fastest player in Major League Baseball history to reach 300 homers by a wide margin. So Ralph Kiner held the previous record. Aaron Judge beat that by 132 games. So Aaron Judge has played about, I think, 932 games and has already reached 300 homers. He's the second player in history, Mark McGwire being the first, that has hit 300 homers before reaching 1,000 hits. We're witnessing just something very special when it comes to Judge and Soto, to be honest. I mean, and the funny thing about the Judge 300th homer, they actually, Grady Sizemore, the interim manager of the Chicago White Sox, actually intentionally walked Soto. And what do you know? Aaron Judge on a 3-0 pitch deposits one out for a 3-run homer. But like I said, it was a very eventful series, not in all the right ways. And Jazz Chisholm Jr., unfortunately, a big storyline coming out of this series that he is on the injured list with a left elbow strain. So a UCL type injury for Chisholm. And you just have to hope that it's going to be more of the short-term variety and hope that he can make it back at some point in September, because the fact of the matter is that season-ending surgery is on the table. And if that does happen, I'll make likely another episode. And please like and subscribe, would be greatly appreciated for the channel. But if that does happen, good chance I'll discuss in further detail what it means. But for now, hoping that they, can dodge somewhat of a bullet when it comes to this Jazz injury. But yeah, it was on a play where he, a very aggressive play, down 4-1 in Game 1, and slid into home, and he was safe, but I guess made contact with the catcher, and he was, shaking his left elbow in the dugout. And you could tell that once the adrenaline wore off that he was in some pain. So this might be somewhat similar, which isn't great news, to the 2017 Gleyber Torres injury, which happened in the minors. It must have been AAA, where at that time, it had to have been, where there was a thought that Gleyber would be called up as a third baseman for that 2017 push. But he had a collision at home plate, and he ended up getting Tommy John surgery. Now, he was back for the 2018 season, but he was done for the rest of the season. And so I'm sure they're going to get doctors' opinions, but that's a big deal. The one good thing is it gets Oswaldo Cabrera much deserved playing time. And so that's the one benefit. And so expect to see him a lot more at third base. As far as transactions that occurred in this series, that's the big one. So on the hitting side, Oswald Peraza is called up, which is good because he got up to a really slow start and has picked it up and is still a young player with some promise. The only problem is I just don't know what his role will necessarily be on this team. I'm sure they'll try to get him some spot duty every now and then and figure against lefties that they'll try to get him some starts. But yeah, he'll be a pinch runner. I think that much is definitely true. But let's remember, this is a young player that you do still want getting regular reps. And so that, to me, I'm just not seeing where they're going to get him in there. Again, I think against lefties is probably what you're looking at. And maybe what it ends up being is this. In some way, shape, or form, first base is kind of a LeMahieu Rice platoon, and third base is kind of a Cabrera Peraza platoon. I'm okay with that. At the same time, personally, I'm very okay with giving Volpe and/or Torres the odd day off too. So, I don't think you have to just limit it to the corners when it comes, especially with Peraza having that flexibility, Cabrera as well. So I think that they should really try to incorporate the Oswaldos, if you will, the Oswald twins. Cabrera deserves it. He's been so good at the major league level. But even Peraza, again, I hope they don't just discard him. That said, I'm not that optimistic that he is going to be able to do enough to make a real difference. And that's always kind of been unfortunate for him. In part, it was his fault for not taking advantage of opportunities, but also it's been a bit of a logjam for him. So we'll see. On the pitching side, the interesting thing that happens is Enyel De Los Santos has already been designated for assignment. So that Cashman trade deadline, early returns are not great if you really want to take a negative slant. In the Chisholm case, he's been really good when he's been on the field, but he's already hurt. And that's been a thing. And I know, look, I understand it's bad luck. I understand that you can't predict that. But again, if we really want to take this, to a certain place and sort of swing a narrative, there's that. Mark Leiter Jr., who I like and still have a lot of hope for, he hasn't really been good. There's been a couple of really nice appearances. I mean, that Philly series comes to mind and one against the Blue Jays, but Leiter Jr. has not been good. And then De Los Santos, basically 2 weeks into his Yankee career, gone. And you know what? The one thing I'll give credit on, because sometimes I feel like the front office, they're a little bit stubborn. The fact that they said, hey, we got to cut our losses here and we're done with it. And so what happened was, because of the rainouts, I mean, specifically the rainout in the Texas series, it made for a thinner bullpen. And so Will Warren got the start on Wednesday. It was kind of twofold. I think there was a world where they would have gone bullpen game. I think it came down to a matter of they preferred to have Warren be the starter, everything being equal. And they were able to do that. And I think almost in part, and I could be wrong on this, I think the Chisholm IL enabled Warren to get called up, as I know that there is a restriction, because he had just been up less than a week ago. And I'm pretty sure the old rule was it's at least 10 days. But I also know that for these transactions, it's pitcher for pitcher, hitter for hitter. And as we know, Chisholm's a hitter. But I think that him going injureless still makes it work. So that, I think, factors into it slightly, because they kind of wanted him to come up. But also the fact that De Los Santos got absolutely clobbered in the first game. You add all those things up, and it made it easy. Plus this, you do have pitchers in the minors that are really knocking on that door, whether it be players coming back from, there's going to be, whether it be players coming back from injury or just in the case of Scott Efros, right? But in the case of like Ron Marinaccio, he's been just pitching well. So to me, when they send Warren down, expect it to be either Marinaccio or Efros that takes that De Los Santos spot. All in all, I'm fine with it, but it just speaks to just not a good trade. Inconsequential in the fact that what the Yankees gave up probably won't amount to really much of anything to the Padres, but there was hope there. And on the one hand, give them credit for not being stubborn and letting it go, but also, let's be honest, you acquired a pitcher that wasn't very good. So again, the trade deadline, not great. Game one, total embarrassment. And right now, the Yankees, they win 2 out of 3. They're 72-50. And that puts them a half game ahead of Baltimore, who's 71-50. So still tied on the loss side. That's going to be a neck-and-neck battle. The Yankees, as far as the major league standings, are a half game behind Cleveland. So Cleveland is the only team in the league that has less than 50 losses, as they sit currently at 72-49. And the Yankees are 72-50. So yeah, half game back, just one on the loss side. So as much as the Yankees, again, it feels like there's struggles, it feels like there's chaos, they're still right up there. And again, in part, looking at the division, Baltimore just isn't really getting the job done themselves. They have been struggling too. So again, very eventful in the fact that game one, total embarrassment. They lose 12-2, and there was a lot of records. I think that was like the most lopsided loss against a team with that bad a record since like over 100 years ago. I don't know the exact stat, but there was a bunch of them where the combination of the nature of the lopsided loss plus who it was against, and hey, that's fair. You don't want to make a big deal about it because it is one game and they still won the series. But that all said, I think, it was something that you take your lumps for it. But it's not a loss that I think provides any long-term concern, but still an embarrassing one nonetheless. So let's jump right into it by first discussing, the hitters in this series. Alex Verdugo seems to kind of be a staple at leadoff, whether it be versus lefties or righties, and I think fans, and myself included, kind of have a little bit of an issue with that. I'll be honest. There isn't really a clear-cut solution to who should be there. I gotta say, you could try to get funky. You can be creative, and I'm open to discussions. I'm open to finding ways for that to not be the case. And Verdugo, this was not a particularly great series for him, although there were, a couple of decent moments within the 3 games. But again, like, you can't really tell me someone easily that should be taking that spot. That's just the truth. And so we'll just kind of see how it evolves. Juan Soto, unbelievable series. I mean, unfucking believable series. He hits 3 home runs in game 2, homers in game 3. It's too bad because the one out he had, it was ball 4, and he just chased it. And honestly, he might have been trying to hit a home run and grounded out. So, like, it got to a point, like, he walked 3 times in game 1. Just, like, stupid numbers. Like, he got on base probably, 70, 80% of the time in this series, which is just, like, he's capable of that, but it's crazy. Aaron Judge, magnificent, consistent, great series from him. Hits his 300th homer, as discussed previously. Historic. It's a shame that he came up to the big leagues in his mid-20s. He was a bit of a late bloomer in some ways, but you know what? That all said, maybe that was how it was supposed to be. Maybe he's the type of player that if he came up earlier, it might not have come to fruition. But because here's the thing, like, think about Gleyber Torres. Gleyber came up as a young player, right? How old was he? Was he younger than, actually the best example is Juan Soto. Juan Soto was a teenager. Juan Soto was like 19 years old, maybe even as young as 18. And so that's going to help in terms of the overall statistics. But that said, again, I kind of go back and forth because I think the way it worked out with Judge landed beautifully. So all the stats as far as him being the quickest there is awesome. But in the back of my mind, it's like, well, he's already 32. So in terms of the final numbers, I don't know where they end up. But what he's doing, like, to this point of his career, I can't believe it. And that could be a discussion for another day, but I truly, it's hard to fathom how good this guy is. His numbers in the season, mind you, this is mid-August. So still a month and a half to go in the season. 43 homers, 110 RBIs with a 333 batting average and an 1174 OPS. It's crazy. Like, the 333 batting average, like, if Bobby Witt wasn't so good, we're looking at Triple Crown. But I think catching Witt in average is going to be tough. Like, if Aaron Judge was in the National League, right, because that's kind of how it works with the Triple Crown, Judge would likely get it. But him being in the American League, and that's where a lot of the best hitters are. Obviously, you have Ohtani in the National League, but you think about Bobby Witt, Juan Soto, Gunnar Henderson, a few others come to mind too. Rafi Devers. I think there's one other. Even Yordan Alvarez, but I'm kind of digging a little bit deeper there and not being totally fair to the National League. But the American League has like 5, 6, or 7 of the 8 best in the league this season. I'm not talking about guys that are hurt like Acuna, but just the ones that are healthy when you look at the stats. But anyway, Judge has been ridiculous. Giancarlo Stanton, his series, not a good game 1. He didn't start game 3, and I'm trying to think game 2. I don't think that there was a lot to speak of in game 2, but I'll retract that once we get there if there was. So kind of a quiet series for Stanton. Austin Wells, it was kind of a quiet series for Wells, but then game 3, he's able to get a really big kind of game-winning 2-run single in the 7th inning, a 3-hit night. He also homered actually after Judge hit his 300th homer. Wells, they actually went back-to-back. So Wells finds a way again to come out of a series with a very nice stat line. Gleyber Torres, not a whole lot to speak of from him, and his hitting streak, I believe, came to an end. He was consistently kind of getting about 1 hit a night, But game 3, it didn't happen. Jazz Chisholm Jr., it was actually started out a pretty solid game 1, but then as we know, he got hurt, and now he's going to be out for some time. Ben Rice, not a whole lot from, I think for Ben Rice, I just fear that he's going to lose some playing time. Whether that be because of like DJ LeMahieu, and for LeMahieu, not a great, we'll get into him, not a great series for him. It's been better than what it was, but it's not as good as what it just was. And, I think with Rizzo coming back at some point, Ben Rice, unfortunately, hasn't quite taken advantage of the opportunity like I hope he has. I just don't want him to lose playing time at the expense of, let's say, like LeMahieu, but neither do I really want it to be Rizzo. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, I understand if Rice is kind of taken out of the mix, but at the same time, like, I think that he still deserves a chance. Anthony Volpe, who had really been struggling, look, this was a step in the right direction. There were still struggles. I still don't love what I see, but at the same time, Volpe, he actually walked, like, I think 3 times in the series, which is the first time he's gotten walks in a while, a long, long time. It might have been, I don't know, since like June, which sounds kind of crazy. It must have been July. That doesn't sound real, but yeah, Volpe, at least he's showing a little bit of patience. And then, like I said, LeMahieu, not great as far as his series was concerned. Not terrible, but not great. And then who would the other players be? Trent Grisham looked okay, in his first game back since getting hit by a pitch in game 3. Nothing really crazy to speak of. Oswaldo Cabrera continues, and we'll discuss a really big play he made in game 3, the rubber game. He's full of energy. You got to love Oswaldo Cabrera in terms of forgetting about what the results are. He is someone that is a likable player, a likable person, and I really hope that he gets a chance to play because he deserves it. And he's, kind of had to wait his turn for a while, and you just can't deny that, like, the Yankees are a better team with him in that lineup. So I like what I've seen from Oswaldo. And I'm trying to think if there was anyone else that was left out. I don't think so. I think that was everyone. So, game 1, Luis Gil struggled. And remember I said last time about Luis Gil, like, maybe some bad memories with, that pitching at the White Sox. The ironic thing is like the pitching line ends up kind of being right around the same. Now, what came after that was Tommy John surgery. Let's hope that's not the case this time. But Gil loses and drops to 12-6. He goes 4 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. It just never seemed quite comfortable, and just wasn't good. And for the White Sox, it was Kai Busch, the lefty. And this is an ugly line, but he was able to kind of piece it together and not give up the big hit. He goes 4 2/3, so falls just 1 out shy of the win. 6 hits, 2 runs, 7 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Like, that's insane. 7 walks and 2 strikeouts, and he only gave up 2 runs. Like, the Yankees with runners in scoring position, listen to these stats for both teams. Runners in scoring position, Yankees 2 for 18 with 16 left on base. That is nuts. And then for the White Sox, it was kind of the reverse, 10 for 17. The White Sox totally looked not like themselves. This lineup is really about as poor as it gets. It really, really is. When it comes to just name value, when it comes to actual statistics, it's just pretty ugly. But it didn't matter. On this night, the White Sox really took it to the Yankees. Now, to be fair, this game was close for a while, and then in the 7th, it got out of hand. So it wasn't as if the score is a little bit misleading. I'll give the Yankees that. But let's get into this. And this might be a game I think that we discuss a little bit more than most, but going to try to get through it. Yankees had so many chances, and it started out good. RBI double for Aaron Judge in the first inning, right? So right away, they get it going. But then Stanton, second and third, no out, up 1-0. Stanton pop out, Wells pop out, Torres pop out. And then in the first, for Gil, RBI double against old friend Andrew Benintendi. And I say that he's not really, I think of him more as a Red Sox than a Yankee, but ex-Yankee Benintendi with an RBI double makes it 1-1. And then Gavin Sheets, who was a thorn on the Yankees side pretty much all series, offensively and defensively, he gets an RBI double to make it 2-1 White Sox. Then the Yankees actually, Verdugo throws a runner out at the plate, so it could have been even worse. Second inning, more Yankee opportunities. It ends up bases loaded 1 out for Juan Soto. And the one spot where Soto kind of messed up in this series, he got just too aggressive. Busch was having trouble finding the strike zone, 2-0 pitch that was maybe barely a strike. And Soto swings at it and pops it up, and he was mad at himself. He knew that he shouldn't have done that. And then Judge flies out to right, a pretty well hit fly ball that wasn't too far from being a grand slam. So again, missed opportunity for the Yankees. Third inning, another situation where Chisholm grounds into a double play to end that inning. A little bit of a chance there. Fourth inning, Alex Verdugo bunts for really no good reason. First and second, no out. Mind you, Verdugo had walked the previous at bat. So again, it makes even less sense. Was it the previous at bat, or was it even actually? He might have walked. How many at bats did he have before? No, he walked twice. It doesn't make any real sense with Soto and Judge coming up. And Verdugo lays one down, and it's a bunt pop out to the pitcher. Just mind-boggling. And Verdugo kind of admitted it was him. It wouldn't have made sense. For the team to have told him to do that would make zero sense. But he does it, and then Soto grounds out to first on a nice play by Gavin Sheets, robs him. Then they intentionally walk Judge, which made sense, and then Stanton strikes out. So Stanton not able to make them pay. And so the score remains 2-1. And then in the fourth, the White Sox extend the lead. Corey Lee hits his 10th homer of the year. And then you get an RBI single by Nicky Lopez, makes it 4-1. Let's shift over to the fifth. This is where Chisholm gets hurt. A two-out rally, actually. Chisholm Jr. singles, steals second, and then he's trying to steal on a play where Anthony Volpe's up. Volpe hits a ball into the shortstop hole, and it's a single, but Chisholm Jr. decides, I'm going to keep on going. Actually, pretty good base running. It was exciting. He scores, but little did we know at the time, this leads to Chisholm going on the IL with that elbow they're calling it an elbow strain, I think was what it was determined. And so we're just going to see what the results are and hope that he returns because, again, if he's out for the season, that's a big loss for this team. So it makes it 4-2 at the time. They bring in Touki Toussaint, the righty, to face LeMahieu, and he grounds out to end the inning. Tim Hill comes on in the fifth. Kind of a little unlucky in part. Single Benintendi, single Vaughn, and an RBI double for Gavin Sheets. That Sheets one was hit hard. The first two were kind of lucky. And then, but he is able to get out of the rest of it. So it could have blown right open there, but Hill kind of keeps it at 5-2. Then let's go to, and then Hill pitches a 1-2-3-6. Ben Rice pinch hits for Jazz in the seventh. That's where you kind of realize something's wrong. And then the seventh inning is where things really blow up, and it's on Enyel De Los Santos. You want to hear a bad line? 1 2/3 innings, 8 hits, 7 runs. Like, just horrific. And he ended up throwing 48 pitches. And kind of in that moment, I'm thinking, yeah, like, this could be it for him as a Yankee. The fact, like, they just didn't give a fuck. The fact that he, was throwing that many pitches, it's like they don't really even care anymore because you could have just brought in like a position player. You could have put Oswaldo Cabrera in the 8th inning and said, all right, Oswaldo, get the final few outs here and let's just be done with it. But they didn't even really want to do that. So to go into it quickly, RBI double Gavin Sheets makes it 6-2. RBI single Dominic Fletcher makes it 7-2. RBI single Corey Julks makes it 8-2. And then a 3-run homer by Brooks Baldwin makes it 11-2. And then in the 8th, it would be an RBI single by Gavin Sheets making it 12-2. That's your final score. Nothing else to discuss here, but a very embarrassing loss for the Yankees. Let's go to Game 2. Game 2, I should have probably mentioned him by now. Nestor Cortez. I know it's against a bad lineup, but give him a lot of credit. A great, great outing when the Yankees really needed it. 7 shutout innings, 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, no walks, 9 strikeouts. A beautiful stat line. Improves to 6-10. He really needed it. Look, do I think Nestor's still kind of on the outside looking in on this playoff rotation? I do. I think he still is, but a lot can happen between now and then. And so seeing that he's capable of putting up performance like this is good. And I know it's a bad opponent, but still, this was very, very dominant and kind of the Nestor that you hope to see. So, yeah. And then in this game, Oswaldo starts at third, which makes sense against the righty. And, yeah, everything else kind of made sense too, where, LeMahieu's on the bench, which is preferred versus right-handers, and Rice was in the lineup. And, yeah, and again, just looking at this box score, just to confirm from before, not much from Stanton in the first 2 games. Ben Rice is down to 191, which is pretty tough, even though I think it's a little misleading. There's certainly some merit to the idea that, he is losing playing time, kind of deservedly so. And this is the Juan Soto game. Juan Soto 4, White Sox 1. It's kind of as simple as that. So let's run through it. In the third inning is when it gets going. A Volpe walk starts it out, and hey, that's good. I mean, Volpe, if he can walk, that's going to help things. After a Verdugo ground out to force Volpe out at second, you get a 2-run homer by Soto. Opposite field, makes it 30. It's his 31st homer of the season, and it's against Jonathan Cannon, who went 4 2/3, 5 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. And really, it was just the mistakes to Soto that got him. In the fifth inning, Soto's back at it. Another opposite field homer, second of the night, 32nd of the season, makes it 3-0 Yanks. And then in the seventh inning, Soto does it again. And again, this one would be against, I believe, a lefty. Yes. Frazier Ellard is the one that gives it the homer to Soto. This one, he pulls it, and it's his 33rd homer of the year. Again, like a magnificent night for him, makes it 4-0. And then the Yankees bullpen gets into some trouble, and that's not great. So Mark Leiter Jr., you're not getting what you need from him so far. And I think he'll get there, and I think he will be an important piece to the puzzle, but he goes 2/3 of an inning, allows 1 hit, 1 run, 2 walks, and no strikeouts. So it ends up being a walk to Corey Julks with 1 out, a walk to Lennon Sosa with 2 out, and then an RBI single by Luis Robert Jr. takes him out of the game at 4-1, 2 outs in the 8th. Tommy Kahnle comes on, and then Benintendi grounds out to LeMahieu. Pretty nice play by LeMahieu, actually, in a pretty big spot. And so in the 9th, bottom of the 9th, it would be Kahnle to start the inning, but he gets into some trouble. Andrew Vaughn walk, Gavin Sheets double, makes it 2nd and 3rd, no outs. Time runs up, and Jake Cousins comes on, and Cousins has really been very good for a while now. The cousin of Kirk Cousins, ironically, he has really been someone that gets strikeouts. And he strikes out Corey Lee, walks Miguel Vargas, which is not what you want, but then Nicky Lopez pinch hits and flies out to shallow center, and then Brooks Baldwin strikes out to end the game. So a nice way for Cousins to clean it up. That's the first save of his career. And I believe he's actually from Illinois, so I'm sure that meant a lot to him to get that first save in Chicago. But yeah, so not great for Leiter Jr., really not either for Kahnle either, although I give him more of a pass as I think he's just been better lately. But yeah, the Yankees, again, thanks to Soto, thanks to Nestor, are able to tie up the series. So now let's go to the rubber game. And the Yankees are able to find a way to get it done. Now, 10-2, that's a misleading final score, because the Yankees were actually trailing through 6 innings. They were losing 2-1, and then things turned around for them in the 7th and 8th inning. So in this one, Will Warren, a nice start for him, who, we know he struggled versus the Angels in a second start. This was a lot better. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. 5 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. And I like that. The no walks, 5 strikeouts is good. Too many hits probably. But again, for a young pitcher like that, he kept him in the game. He did what he had to do. For the White Sox, it would be Davis Martin, who actually pitched really well. 5 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, and 5 strikeouts. And just the 1 home run to Soto in the first inning is what got him. So in this game, LeMahieu, I'm not sure if Davis Martin is a reverse splits guy, but it's one of those things where LeMahieu does get the odd start, or maybe even more than odd start at first base against righties. And so that's where, to me, yes, it is kind of a 50-50 split platoon between LeMahieu and Rice, but it kind of feels like it's DJ that's playing a little bit more than Rice, just kind of the way I'm seeing it. Giancarlo Stanton on the bench in this one, so that means Trent Grisham in center field and Aaron Judge the DH. And as well, Oswald Peraza was called up, but he did not appear in this Game 3. As the Chisholm Jr. IL transaction did not happen in Game 2, it happened before Game 3. So the Yankees take the lead. Soto again, so that is 4 straight. I should have mentioned in Game 2 that Jared Schuster walked Soto in the 9th inning. So Soto had a chance for 4 home runs, but he was walked. So that was a little bit unfortunate. So Soto homers here. So that's really his 4th home run in 4 at-bats. If you don't include the walk, which technically isn't considered an at-bat, Soto gets the job done. His 34th homer of the season. Just, again, we're going to talk about why this ends up leading to him being intentionally walked before Judge hits his 300th homer of his career. Second inning, a mistake made by Will Warren. Gavin Sheets homers. An opposite field shot, his 8th homer of the year, ties it up at 1. And then there's a lot of different things that we could discuss, but to talk about the nitty gritty, we go to the bottom of the fourth, and it's a 1-out double by Andrew Vaughn on a play that Trent Grisham, he misplayed it. It should have been caught by Grisham. I'm not sure if he lost in the light. And then Gavin Sheets with an RBI single on a play where DJ LeMahieu probably could have done better. So defense kind of hurts Will Warren, and the White Sox take a 2-1 lead in the fourth inning. Let's just jump. I mean, I could talk about some Verdugo runners in scoring position issues that have happened. Like, he had been like 1 for his last 28 after grounding out in the fifth inning. But to be fair to him, he kind of turns it around the last 2 at-bats, so I'm not going to harp on that too much. In the sixth, you get to a situation where it ends up being bases loaded 2 out, and Anthony Volpe strikes out on a really bad pitch. And his numbers, assuming that it wasn't affected in the last 2 innings, when he strikes out there, he then becomes 18 for 90, which is a 200 batting average on the season with runners in scoring position. That's not good. You should ideally have a better batting average with runners in scoring position than your regular batting average. That's typically the case. And for him to be like 50 points less is a bit problematic. And so Justin Anderson came on for Davis Martin and struck out Volpe with that bases loaded 2-out spot in the sixth inning. Tim Hill comes on, and I'll just say it now. Nice work by Tim Hill and Michael Tompkins. So Tim Hill, 1 scoreless inning. He actually ends up getting the win, and this is against his former team. He was on the White Sox this season, previous to being picked up by the Yankees. And then Michael Tompkins, who's kind of become more of like this like long man, like his role's kind of evolved where he's like a multi-inning guy. He ends up going 3 innings and actually picking up the save. So Tompkins, who's had some struggles lately, really a nice job of kind of resetting the bullpen. I know they have a day off tomorrow, but still, like, it's useful because the bullpen really had been used quite a bit in the last few days. So a nice job by Tonkin. But the Yankee offense gets it going. In the 7th inning, it all starts with Oswaldo Cabrera. He singles, still second. It was actually kind of fortunate because they kind of had him caught, but the fielder, I guess it must have been the second baseman, drops the ball. So he's still second base. Then DJ LeMahieu strikes out. Not a great at-bat, but what are you going to do? And then Dominic Leone comes on to face Alex Verdugo, and it ends up being a sac fly where Oswaldo Cabrera scores from second base. Yes, you heard that right. Dominic Fletcher makes a great catch in right field and kind of collides a little bit with the center fielder, Luis Robert. And so what happens, great heads-up base running by Oswaldo, who basically just starts sprinting from second to third, and then he turns, and a little bit of hesitation, but he goes all the way home from second. That's just such like aware heads-up base running by Cabrera, and not many players on this team would have done that. He is one of the few players that was capable of making that play, and really that right there kind of just turned the whole momentum of the game around. Juan Soto walks, then Aaron Judge doubles, leading to a second and third 2-out situation. And you know what? Kind of looking back on it, they should have pitched more carefully to Austin Wells with a base open, and knowing that you could have had the righty matchup against Torres. In some ways, a little bit surprising that they stuck with it. And Austin Wells, opposite field 2-run single to give the Yankees a 4-2 lead. Gleyber Torres would then walk, and then Dominic Leone would actually lead the game due to injury. And Chad Kuhl comes on and strikes out Trent Grisham. So then let's go to the top of the 8th. Yankees up by 2. Leadoff double Volpe. RBI single Cabrera. Makes it 5-2. Then LeMahieu strikes out looking. And then Cabrera goes to second on a wild pitch by Kuhl, and Alex Verdugo with an RBI double. So he gets that sac fly, and I'll give him credit on the sac fly, even though it wasn't of the traditional sense. He at least did hit that ball pretty well to right center field, and this one was a pretty stinging line drive double. So again, Verdugo, it's not as if he's doing nothing. I don't really think he should be batting leadoff, but he hasn't been completely horrendous. And so that makes it 6-2. Then Juan Soto is intentionally walked in front of Aaron Judge, which, look, it's a bit crazy, but from Grady Sizemore's perspective, Soto had just absolutely embarrassed them to the point of 3 homers the day before, a homer early in the game. They really simply couldn't get him out. And so they go first and second with 2 out. Was it 2 out? No, it was 1 out at the time. And Aaron Judge hits his 300th home run of his career, 43rd homer of the season, 3-run shot, just unbelievable. Makes it 9-2. Then Steven Wilson comes on in relief, and Austin Wells goes back to back. So Wells homers, hits his 9th homer there, makes it 10-2. And that would be your final score. And so the Yankees win the series. Again, a very eventful one in terms of what Soto and Judge did, in terms of the Jazz Chisholm injury, in terms of Game 1 just getting completely embarrassed, including leading to De Los Santos being designated for assignment basically less than 2 weeks from being acquired. So, and a lot more. So, the Yankees, they are in a close race in this division, in this league. It's going to be interesting to see where things go. So now the Yankees will head to Detroit and then actually go to Williamsport. So here's what's happening. So the Yankees have a day off, and then it's a 3-game set against the Tigers, 2 of the games being at Comerica Park. And then the Sunday game is a Sunday night baseball game, kind of in celebration. It's the Little League Classic. It's the first time the Yankees have been in it. And it's going to be a Sunday night ESPN game. And so Friday and Saturday, if the weather holds up, I think there could be some rain in Detroit, but we'll see how it goes. They'll be playing Friday and Saturday there. Garrett Cole pitching Game 1, looking to keep it going off of that really nice outing last time against Texas. And for the Tiger starters, I don't know who they're listed as TBD. The one thing I will say, I would expect Tariq Skubal, who really is the AL Cy Young frontrunner, to start that Sunday, that Little League Classic game in Williamsport. Good chance he will line up for that Sunday start. Now, the Yankees swept the Tigers early in the season at Yankee Stadium, and one of those wins was against Skubal. So, he was really good in that game, but I think the home run ball kind of got him. But if there's one matchup that would be tough, it would be that one. So going through it, Cole's pitching Game 1, Rodon's pitching Game 2, and then Game 3, it's going to be Marcus Stroman against likely Skubal. So that one's going to be tough. And that one, I think there'll be just a little bit more juice. Not a whole lot, but, knowing that it is kind of this random individual game, that one may just feel a little bit bigger, even though obviously all the games are created equal and it's all about winning series. And the Tigers, their lineup isn't great. And they've actually dealt with, they trade away Jack Flaherty, who was a real big part of that rotation this year. Reese Olson, who had been doing pretty well for them, he's hurt. There's been, Kenta Maeda hasn't been good. And so there's been injuries and inconsistencies, but the Tigers are not bad. They're 58-63. They are more than competitive. And like I said, they can generally pitch, even though it's probably not as good as it had been pre-deadline. But we'll see what the Yankees do. This might be a bit of I feel like this is going to be a weird series. We'll track back on that in the next episode, but I sense that, I don't know. I feel like we're going to see some weird stuff, but Yankees Tigers should be somewhat interesting for the fact that, you got part of the series in Detroit, part of it in Williamsport, and we'll see what happens. But the Yankees, what could have really been and what started out to be just a terrible way of this White Sox series, ends up kind of coming out all right. And the Yankees take 2 of 3 against the lowly White Sox, and they will stay within the AL Central as they will go from Chicago to Detroit.